desert locust is one of about a dozen species of short-horned grasshoppers that changes behavior and forms swarms of wingless nymphs that are highly mobile. According to Desert Locust Information Service of Migratory Pests Group, a desert locust can live for 3 to 5 months depending on weather and ecological conditions. When locust's plague first hit southern Arabia in 1967, it was instigated by a cyclone in late 1966 that brought heavy rain in early 1967. The swarms formed and migrated to Iran, the southern coast of Yemen, and northern Somalia. A typical swarm can be made up of 150 million locusts per square kilometer and can fly in the direction of the prevailing wind up to 150 kilometers in a day, covering hundreds of miles. The swarm is already threatening people's livelihoods, food security, the environment, and economic development in the country.
This time, what happened with desert locust is there is always this area in the southern Arabian Peninsula which is called the empty quarter. Now, for the year 2018, this area was hit by almost 2 cyclones successively. So this was creating moisture in the desert place, and it was creating pasture in the desert place. So you see moisture for hatchlings, pasture, large pasture for their feeding. So because this area is empty, because it's so remote, not very many activities go on there, so it's so difficult to detect what is there. The locust bred, and there was the first generation undetected, second generation undetected. And that's why we had millions of locusts now moving from that area and starting now to invade other countries downwards to Yemen. And when they reach Yemen, the issues of conflict in that country, so no much attention was paid to what was going on in the field. So they again were able to breed there, multiply in millions, and now started flying across the Red Sea, and some found themselves in Ethiopia, and some found themselves in Somalia. This is how we were invaded in December 2019.
In February 2020, the UN Food and Agriculture Organization, FAO, announced that desert locusts are destroying tens of thousands of hectares of crops and grazing land in Northeast Africa in the worst invasion in 25 years. The UN warns that a dangerous situation is now facing the region. The region's economic powerhouse, Kenya, is experiencing one of the worst desert locust catastrophes in 70 years, according to FAO, posing unprecedented threats to food security and livelihoods for Kenya's vulnerable populations, including wild animals. Titoya Mirshigan is a traditional Samburu woman. She says the locust invasion has had a great impact both on humans and their livestock, with pastures depleting at a very high rate and the livestock market already closed due to the COVID-19 scare. Her pastoral community entirely depends on livestock.
Bili-bili, babatini, etingara gini.
Bobon kiti ngacin, bobon kiti ngacin nama yang barin ngatuku ngacin Lapa patong barin tadi akan jungus. Tokana, iya dekongolo la barin. Anya mutu kalau barinnya tanya mutu ngacini ngemate. Hulu tiga tina kipi, tamatu tal to manga kipi. Hatta ngamana takwati. A
1-kilometer square-sized swarm contains about 40 million locusts, which eat the same amount of food in one day as about 35,000 people, 20 camels, or 6 elephants. leaving a long-lasting devastating effect on crops and pasture. The desert locust is therefore considered the most dangerous of all migratory pest species in the world.
Marori duranyata. Yo ake badaso rob nu hennu. Rob ni nu hen khayo lafti nu gabbatu. Marotoki ni adali. Nu karasa anjira. Sankani likam satana anjira nu le oju sankun obaile nu le lumu majuam. Akasa kisi.
Kenya hosts the only true desert in the East African region, the famous Chalbi Desert, located in Marsabit, with more than half of the county being a bare land that is now playing as the best breeding ground for the desert locust, especially egg-laying stage. About 45,000 hectares of land has been destroyed.
Markets have been closed. That is still again the livelihood of people. So in other words, people have no food on their table. So it will be very disastrous if this is combined. COVID-19 and locust, desert locust, then our livelihood will be destroyed.
Ado Isako is a livestock keeper. She is trying to slowly transition to farming as a more sustainable lifestyle, but her effort is being curtailed by the destructive migratory insects.
Tamelo wait over there, one candy cojarib. A rail link up. And Namsan do Dumano to Dumatugura. Unakano Jansin Batty Kosoka can change it to Yanadura. Ojano Basale in Nifadumanumta. Itum Davis. Yo anjed anumdura uba. Akana karang hale ngudona de bujit.
For some who saw a swarm of locusts for the first time, beseeching gods for mercy was their only hope. Loyangalani sublocation is where Kenya's smallest tribe, the El Molo community, live. Their only source of income has been livestock keeping and fishing in Lake Turkana. This is the young generation of locusts that hatched from the eggs left behind by their mother locusts.
It's our first time kuona ile locust invasion, jilikuwa kwa wingi sana. Tulistuka, tukadhani hata ni Mungu anataka kupunish the world with that. Sasa tuliona tu kitu zimekuja kwa wingi. Hapo watu walianza kuomba. Ndio baadaye tukaona kwa TV tu tunagonga vitu ndio zinakimbia, but tulikuwa na ustuko wa kutosha.
Korang berrekwene kodal. Ning durumo to kya nyuyo. Kijanga gwana kaina cha. Asa, elma tele kijanga kaina cha. Ka tuwa kaira pijang kopo ka tuwa na loipe bonga.
According to the National Disaster Management Authority, NDMA, destruction of crops, pasture and fodder could potentially lead to displacement and conflicts as communities seek alternative food and feed for their livestock.
We anticipate that instead of them staying for maybe 3 months in parts of like Samis and North Hor, they will have to move earlier to either Saku, Moya, even Huri Hills and towards Turkana and Ethiopia. Because again, it has been reported locusts have been sighted in Samburu, Laikipia, as well as Isiolo.
The Turkana community in Isiolo County is one of the most affected in this area. They are worried that the poverty level might intensify if the situation remains the same for the next few months. The short rainy season from February to May this year was the perfect time for farmers across the country to plant their seeds in the soil with the hope of a bumper harvest in June before their hopes were dashed.
Sasa wakati nilipanda hii shamba yangu, nzige ilikuja ikamaliza. Sasa nikarudia tena mara ya pili. Nikapanda mboga, alafu nikapanda viazi tamu. Sasa wakati nzige ilikuja ikamaliza. Sasa hata hii miti ambayo iko karibu na shamba ilikuja ikajaa. Sasa nilipata hasara kabisa. Na hata kondoo yangu ngine ilikufa kwa ajili ya hiyo mavi. Sasa wakati nilianza tena kurudia mara ya pili kupanda hiyo mboga, inamea tu kidogo, haimei vizuri. Sasa imearia hiyo mavi yake hapo, hata hiyo mchanga haina ile rutuba.
Samuel Mutegi is a farmer from Tharaka Nithi. His farm has never been the same since the invasion. from the usual bumper harvest of 20 bags of sorghum and millet per season, each to barely 8 bags. Mutegi has had to bear a costly economic loss.
Wakati zige zimekuja kavamia samba, na wakati tulianza kupiga dawa, tulipiga zingine zikaenda na zingine ikakufa, na wakati silienda tulijaribu kupanda kwa mimea lakini haikukua.
Siajire siaethira werea irio tatiga bire kwendio bia biare mbere siaethira wankinya ntakwe uketha kwaria bierwa siaria kabisa biathira mwankago atwikika na ndena ya mondo uyu mbega ngiketha gintungune ata 25 ria gwikuru bwega untu weke mwana wa kiuma kinya nkune inya arafu ikoya siaria kabisa no tiento ndona.
Governments and stakeholders who have not been confronted with such huge invasions for at least a quarter of a century have had to scramble for pesticides, protective clothes, fumigators and aircrafts, among other technologies, to fly above the locust swarms in an effort to spray them dead. The use of pesticide has, however, had a deadly effect on the environment, endangering the livelihood of the most vulnerable beings, including wild animals and bees. Laikipia County is bordered by 3 drought-prone counties of Baringo, Isiolo and Samburu. The county has always been on the receiving end of disasters that befell its neighbors. Desert locust invasion might just be one of those disasters yet again.
Sometimes we get advantaged, very true, because we get a bit more rain than the neighboring counties. And when the worst come to the worst, the neighboring counties get affected, we also get affected. The impact will be devastating, because now whatever retro that is there in terms of water, in terms of pasture, will be scrambled upon by everybody. There will be inter-county conflict. There will be also wildlife human conflict and all these kind of things.
The environmental, aerial and satellite imageries of the impact of desert locust in various affected counties appears distressing.
Birds who are following locust, when they feed on the locust, the dead locust, they actually affected, and to some extent they die. Here there was no spreading of the locust, but it was done in Isiolo and some parts of Samburu East. But the effect itself, the infected locust came to a rangeland, and that's how we got actually the infection of the pesticide that were being spread to the locust.
Singida tulikuwa na impact negatively, imekuwa impacted negatively kwa sababu kulikuwa na hiyo pollution, air pollution. Kulikuwa pia na ile sound pollution kwa sababu ya ile kelele ya ndege. As a result of that, kuna wanyama ambao walikuwa wanyama pori ambao they were forced to get out of those areas to a safer environment kwa sababu ya kelele.
Farming counties like Meru and Tharaka Nithi have had the challenge of spraying locusts for fear of contamination, hence severe infestation of crops.
The outbreak of the desert locust in Meru County caused us scare because most of our crops at the first invasion were at the green productive stage, and we actually really fearing what would happen because one thing for the desert locust, it moves in terms of swarms, and the swarms are in millions.
The spraying has also had a severe impact on livestock.
Sasa unakuta venye simeenda, unakuta simeanza kama ni ng'ombe, simeanza kutoa njaa nini, kama ni mbuzi, simeanza kutoa nini hiyo mimba, zinaanza kukufa, na hatujui kwa nini. Sisi ni watu wa kufuga nyuki, so unakuta hiyo wakati zenye nini locust zimekuja, so unakuta ilikuwa season ya hiyo tuseme nyuki. Miti zilikuwa zinatoa matawi, so unakuta hizo locust zimekula hizo matawi, zimeangusha, so unakuta hata hiyo season hakuna asali.
Different communities reacted differently to the intimidating arrival of desert locusts in Kenya. Some were terrified, others fascinated to see the outbreak, while the majority were confused on how to react to the frustrating insects. 73-year-old Nicholas Echuman was only a young boy when he first saw a locust invasion in his motherland.
When they invaded, we had no advanced mechanism of preventing them. So we had to scream, we had to ride bikes, hooting, we had to beat metal so that they can get scared and go.
Some communities even have special memories of the last desert locust in their ancestral lands, owing to invasions of yesteryears.
It was actually an exciting thing to see, because we are being told by our elders the last time they saw locusts is the year 1956. Wish we have a place that is named after locust here, where the government was putting the chemicals. The colonial government was putting chemicals mainly to kill the locust.
African communities have always had certain traditional beliefs about strange happenings, and locust invasions is no exception.
Kwa kimila yetu tunajua sikikuja lazima magonjwa sikuje, vita na watu kukufa. So kwa kimila yetu tuna believe hivyo.
They always predict kwamba ni inaleta ukame, na tena ukiona ikiwa ni nyingi zaidi ni ukame ambaye haitaisha siku karibuni. So wengine walikuwa naenda kuomba, mpaka leo watu wameenda mahali tunaombanga kwa community zetu tofauti, wameenda kwa those shrines kuendelea kuomba, kujua vile ya kuhamisha hizo vitu.
Following the alarming destruction of livelihoods, there was a need for immediate locust impact assessment. The United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization, FAO, contracted the Kenya Red Cross Society for its vast local presence in all the 47 counties, with elaborate logistical and human resources capacity to conduct the assessment of desert locust invasion impact in the country in an effort to support recovery plans in selected counties.
Being a grassroots organizations, we have been involved, for example, during the surveillance period when the desert locust invasion started. So we had volunteers and staff who were already participating in the activities, including even some of the early warning activities in terms of alerting communities and ensuring that working closely with the county governments in terms of the spraying and being able to tell where some of the locusts have been sighted to ensure that there is then an effective action.
The objective of the assessment will help government and stakeholders in contributing to the resilience of livelihoods to threats and crisis.
We have realized and appreciated that the use of tech can make our work a lot more effective and efficient in the way that we make decisions and the information that we're providing partners in government, and also in the actions that we do. So we, for this assessment, because it was in a short time frame and the data was needed immediately to be able to develop recovery plans, we felt it was really important to incorporate the use of tech that would give us accurate information, timely information, and information that could be used for decision making.
At least 16 counties, namely Mandera, Garissa, Wajir, Marsabit, Isiolo, Samburu, Kitui, Machakos, Tana River, Tharaka Nithi, Meru, Embu, Kirinyaga, Laikipia, Baringo, and Turkana have experienced locust invasion, with some of the counties like Samburu reporting at least 14 swarms, with many others having repeat invasions in the last 3 months.
Community elders, for example, the chief was also considered a key informant in the community. And the reasons they were selected was because of the knowledge that they do have and the positions or the roles they are playing in the county, and also identify solutions on how to, of course, control the desert locust and come up with recovery interventions in the county.
The 16 affected counties have already embarked on preparedness, response and recovery plans that are county-specific livelihood interventions aimed at developing inclusive short and medium-term monitoring, preparedness and response planned to mitigate future desert locust occurrences.
We are still worried a little, especially with Yemen, because of matters there, conflicts and everything. Some breeding is being reported to be taking place in Yemen, and probably not much control is going on. They're trying their level best under the circumstances, but then not much is happening. For example, like it has happened in Kenya now. So if they don't do much and then winds come and weather conspire, then we most likely can get another wave that will cross Red Sea the same way around November, pass Ethiopia, and they will may find when Ethiopia still is battling whatever is currently still in that country. And if they are not able to deal with it, you surely can think that the south winds will still bring it back in December. But that is all hypothetical.
Although for decades the world has known chemical spraying of locusts as the only working method of dealing with invasion, the French Agricultural Research Center for International Development suggests that conducting continuous surveys and research beforehand to pinpoint places where locusts are reproducing may make it possible to destroy the hoppers on the ground as they begin to socialize as early as possible.